So hello everyone, Modern here, welcome to my review of Souma episode 7, season 3. I find it a really good episode. I mean, yeah, I think all episodes have been really good so far. This might be one of my favorites. So I think the best episodes was for when I kind of half-ass beat Kuga, right? Kuga, I never pronounced. But I think this episode here was probably the second best episode. Really enjoyed it. It was funny. Had attention, had a drama. It was, yeah, pretty much everything there. Only thing I would say is that the flashback was a little too long. But after that, we saw the girls crying, so it definitely has some kind of meeting, right? We have to get his flashback. Everyone is happy, everyone gets to do some stuff together, and then suddenly this guy enters and just cheats on the rules, and yeah, so they're crying. So it made some sense there. I mean, it definitely was like a good decision from flashback into crying. But I will say that it was a little too long. It probably could be half as long or so, and it would be perfect. But I mean, I love the whole Aizen part. How is it so evil? It's like the ending here is so ridiculous evil. I just love it so much. I was like, okay, I have bribed the judges. I got this thing going for me. I'm like number in the 10 seat and blah blah. And I sent my guys to destroy your place where you live right now. So even if you beat me, it's too late. Like, use that pressure. I mean, whoever lives with the place though, with all the crazy people, all the weirdos that they're gonna put in a fight and beat them up, right? I mean, yeah, those like muscle guys, so they're probably gonna defeat Aizen's school. It's so hard not to say Aizen, right? From Bleach. Spoiler, yeah, from Bleach. Not saying much more than probably. I think most people know Aizen and Bleach. Aizen, right? It's A or A, but yeah. I thought about Bleach for many years, not on my channel here, but previous to other channels and with other people and so on, right? So yeah, so it's very hard. So you're probably gonna hear me say Aizen a lot. But anyway, sorry, but I say that here. I probably say Aizen a lot of times, but I mean Aizen. These very similar names, and they're quite similar. Yeah, they're even quite similar personalities. Like the things like, oh, but I also have this plan. Yeah, it's like I have this plan and this advantage, but I also took this plan for safekeeping. Like that's like. They're very similar actually, so that does not help. That does not help. They are similar, condescending, and yeah, personality, even body language is similar. They're very similar. That's a good point. Anyway, the whole thing there, it's I kind of like it. I mean, it's very like depressing in the centralization. It's very like, oh, we're gonna remove everything, creativity, no one's gonna fight and so on, right? But you can do the Shokugeki. It's a little weird though. It's a famous cheat though. I would. It's kind of cool, but at the same time, kind of like, should at least this kind of Shokugeki not be able to cheat because, you know, should that be some kind of bylaw? Should that be like, oh, you can change the principle and so on, but you're not allowed to change these rules? Maybe though. I would actually give this thing though. If they can change the principle and so on, the director. If they have a majority of 10 people, couldn't they then also change these rules, saying that you cannot, you know, bribe the judges or so on, whatever? Like, there has to be a rule against it, right? But shouldn't they be able to change the rule? They haven't done that, right? So it's kind of like it feels like it's a little too hasty there, or just like throw it out that, oh, but you can't bribe them. It's like, well, we can because we introduced this new law yesterday. Like that would be nice. There was like, we introduced this thing here. But that being said, though. That would actually probably be very disadvantageous for themselves in the end, right? Because it means that if you have number one, and then someone enters his school with more money, he can just bribe them and actually become number one by just bribing them. Because everyone has a price, right? So that's actually would kind of be defaulted for themselves because they're the best chefs. Anyway, the whole thing that we see them all rising and so on, it's very obvious, of course, the skewer guy with the Wolverine cloth. I love that thing, the Wolverine thing. That guy is of course gonna lose. That's like this random guy I've ever seen before. You think you have a chance? I mean, clearly he's gonna lose right there. That is very clear. And he's just like I wouldn't call it war effect, but just a random guy sacrificed to show us the new rules. Oh yeah, sorry. Let's talk about the rules. That I think is interesting. I think it's very interesting as a political team, right? So we see them creating this place where you have no creativity, you have only following the main bureaucracy. So obviously it's the inverse of Saiba and Souma, which are like, oh, I'll do this honey thing with octopus and it's crazy tasting. Here, of course, it's like very strict. And I think that it's very clear it comes from Saiba and Asuma's backstory, right? We haven't seen it yet, but it's like, you know, there's some bad blood there, and I think it's very clear there. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna do the reverse of what my senpai did. I think it's very forthcoming, and but it's interesting. I think it's definitely a very interesting typical main story here, because the hero is the person going against the rules. The hero is the guy fighting the evil government that has the guts to break whatever is currently in the system. And here we're going from like a Darwinistic fight to be the strongest system, which is very interesting, to this like super communistic, like this is exactly what you have to do. This is your lot in life, no one discussion. You're good at this thing, do this thing. Yeah, it's very, very much like, yeah, no freedom anymore. Everyone's gonna make this particular food. And of course, the result of that, I think it's very clear. So the anime, we're gonna show that in the eventually, right? It's very clear that it's gonna lose because they won't be able to innovate, right? It's exactly like in real life. You have everyone doing exactly the same thing with this particular formula we created 10 years ago, or 100 years ago, whatever. Then it's just gonna stay at that level. No one's ever gonna become better than that, because this is the level we have made everyone be at, right? So of course, some rebel crazy hero guy like Souma can come and say, "Oh, you are ever at this level," which has a high level though. That's the thing with this anime, right? Normally you would say that, okay, when you have this kind of super, played out, flat kind of system, everyone is like, if it's a scale, everyone's like in the bottom, right? Everyone is very, very in the bottom, or so in the middle, but like very, very like a huge middle part or lower middle. But in their case, because they're like the greatest chefs in the world, they're putting everyone at a very, very high level. So in theory, it sounds pretty good, because everyone gets like an 8 out of 10 level, this flat 8 out of 10, right? But of course, no one is ever gonna get better 8 out of 10, because they refuse to innovate, and they just have to be at the level where the rest of them are. Yeah. So that's gonna lead to someone being crazy, right? A typical hero, and say, "Yo, I'll follow that shit and have the new better food and become a 9 out of 10, right?" So it's a very, very clear system that hates Souma, but also is his greatest advantage, because he was obviously beaten by being creative, right, and being innovative. But I think it's interesting though, because normally we will have this kind of system to say everyone has to be in the middle or like in the same. In reality, it's more like everyone has to be 2 out of 10. Everyone has to be in the bottoms. Everyone has to be equal good at everything down here, yeah. And no one can ever reach up, and it's very easy to find a few people that can easily crush that, right? That's how it works in reality. That's why it's like the walls, the ones it's fall down, right? Because it doesn't make any sense philosophically to have that system. It's really, really hinder innovation, right? So it's gonna be crushed by other countries as well. But here, it's a little interesting here, I say again then. I know I'm looping here, but I think it's interesting again because in Souma world, they really have like the best chefs, they have the best in the world, so they put the equal level of like the really, really highest I mentioned, which makes it quite an interesting challenge then, because it means that Souma and so on have to fight a lot of people that are very high, even though they're bad. Maybe, probably not gonna happen. I think it's more about being the top 10 and so on. But the general narrative is very, very clear. It's a guy that's a rebel, the hero, typical hero that refuses to follow the government, refuses to follow the laws set up. And the laws before helped him immensely, no laws are against him, and he has to really change up to that, right? He has to be the rebel against the government. So it's very classic in a way, very classic narrative. Like you can find this kind of stories back in the Greek mythology and whatever, like Homer's, but back like 3,000 years, 4,000 years, Gilligan versions. But yeah, it's very, very like this is how it works. So that is a very, very core storyline. So in one way it's good, in another way it's the most cliche thing ever. Yeah, it's like the hero is fighting the evil government. Yeah, it's the most cliche thing ever in one way. But anyway, see you guys next week and have a great day.